The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this particular episode is one of our deep dives. We're going to dive deep into the High Republic book, Midnight Horizon by Daniel Jose Older. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. Can't wait to dive on in. I love these young adult and middle grade readers because they are on my intelligence level and I can understand them better. Also, sometimes I get confused. No, it's going to be a lot of fun diving back to the High Republic.
Yeah, can't wait to get started discussing it. So we want to let you know, as always, that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, we are recommending the book we're about to talk about, Midnight Horizon by Daniel Jose Older. If you want to experience the story first and then listen to us share our thoughts, you can pause this podcast right now and download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. But Ken, we have other books to recommend that we're not currently discussing.
Yeah, that's right. You got two hands, right? You can hold these books in each hand there if you do. If you don't, you got a table, a desk. You got a lot of options. Inside Editions, publisher of a ton of great Star Wars books, is offering 35% off across their website. If you use the special link, insideeditions.com/discount/FC35. This week, we're recommending the Inside Editions book, The Mini Book of Lightsabers. It is exactly what it says it is, a tiny mini book of lightsabers. It's wonderful. It really is. Again, use this link, insideeditions.com/discount/FC35. All right, Joseph.
If I were a skilled woodworker, I would make a little tiny coffee table for this tiny book, mini book of lightsabers. It's absolutely beautiful. But we're going to talk about a good-sized book, physically, and a huge book, emotionally, I think. We're going to dive into Midnight Horizon. As always, we want to let you know, awooga, awooga, the official warning noise that this is a full spoiler podcast review. We are going to talk about everything, nothing withheld. So again, if you haven't read or listened to this book and you want to first, this is your final warning. We're going into hyperspace, into Spoiler Town. So Ken, with that acknowledgement, that warning out there, what was your big picture reaction to Midnight Horizon? Love it, like it, struggle with it? How did it fit into your general love of the High Republic? Where you at?
I fit in nicely. We'll start there. I've been so enjoying the High Republic and taking it all in. And sometimes that's overwhelming. The comics, everything. There's a lot out there. It's a lot out there. But you are always pulled back in so well by these authors. And this book was no different. I think overall, though, this book won me over, which is actually, I'll say, it's a real positive statement. It was a tough week for all of us at the time of this reading, and it's always tough, but it is just a particularly tough week, both just state of the world and also just schedule-wise for me to sit down and concentrate on a book of any kind. So when this book started and had some very, shall we say, wizard comedy, and it pulled in a lot of characters, there's at one point I really patted myself on the back where I was like, oh, I think that's that one character for the comics, and I looked it up, and I got it right. But before then, I was a little hazy on it, and I've been following the comics. I just get behind a little bit, so I don't know. I pulled back a little bit at the beginning, and I started to take like the least amount of notes of any High Republic book yet, which it wasn't about the book, but at one point I was just kind of trying to get to the finish line. But then at one point, Joseph, this book just was really started to turn a little bit, get deeper, and it started playing with real world emotions and desires in this charming and insightful and meaningful way. And this is a young adult novel, and it's young adults. I don't know. It's very. This book never talks down or at the core reader. Talks with them. It sits at the table with them, so to speak. It talks it over, asks them how they feel, leaves the reader enough room to figure out, I don't know, how they want to go forward, and therefore I gave me room to grow with this book as well. So. This book challenged this old dog to look back at choices I've made in my life, which is big, and choices I'm still making. So it all came together nicely and led to one of my favorite High Republic moments we're going to talk about. And that's what I mean when I say the book won me over.
Yeah, I went on a similar journey. I'm loving the High Republic, and it can be a lot to keep track of. And I've been reading almost everything, including Daniel Jose Older's great High Republic Adventures that introduces several of the characters that we spent time with and refers to a lot of the characters. And I think it
Mm.
was richer for having read that comic book. But it can be a lot to keep in mind, And all these books have had this great mix where they're really good mythic action adventure books where they're the short propulsive chapters. They've got that serial adventure feel, so they kind of whisk you along. So there's great movement in them, but then they also ask you to do a lot of work because every book features multiple main characters, and you have to track back. Like, yes, I remember something was bugging this character, but what was it, and what is the connection between that character? And
Yeah.
has that only been alluded to? Was that in my head canon, or was that in that
Yeah.
panel, that comic book? Like, it can be a lot of work. So I am finding myself wanting to get like into a High Republic groove and stay there
Yeah. Yeah.
so that I can memorize it more. So I'm very much enjoying the books, but just by the nature of what the initiative is, there's a little bit of work to kind of get back into the High Republic groove and remember everything I want to fully get the most out of it. So I had
Mm.
that. And then, yeah, I think this book at the beginning, it has a lot of great character work. We get a peek into the central conflicts of all of our main characters. Their inner turmoil is very serious, but there's a lot of fun character work, a lot of fun banter, and the book is it's fun. And Daniel Hazley Older, I think, has this style of just there's like an energy and a real why not spirit, and I think there's even some language that is used a lot that some language and some comedy that feels very modern to me, which sometimes
Mm.
for me, I have to work a little bit to accept. I actually think it's really great that he does that because I think Star Wars needs to evolve and it needs to bring
Mm.
in younger people. And then I just have to wrestle with my own, like, do we
Mm.
use that word in Star Wars? And I'm like, yes, we do because Star Wars evolves. Uh, but I have to process that for myself.
Mm.
So, like, the first half of this book is like, I got to work a little bit to get into it, enjoying all the comedy work, enjoying the character work. And then about halfway through, it just to me explodes into depth,
Yeah.
action, pain. Some of my favorite moments in High Republic as well. On a personal level, I mentioned on the News and Cues show or news show that we
Mm.
did this week that I sold a house that my wife and I have owned in Minneapolis for a very long time, and it was really surprisingly hard to let go. And I was reading that was the same day that happened, and I was kind of taken by surprise on how much it hurt to let go of that house that I loved, that I thought I was ready to let go of, and I wasn't quite ready for, but I needed to process. I was finishing this book, and this is one of those moments where Star Wars swooped in and helped me.
Mm.
Um, and I felt like, look, if Yoda can
Yeah.
process sadness, uh, if Cantum
Mm.
can process their feelings and
Mhm.
learn to let go
Yeah.
and look to new horizons, all these characters who go through all this great depth that we'll talk about in depth, so I won't get into it now, but it was just um it went from being like, this is a book I like, I'm enjoying, but I gotta really kind of get on the same page of it, to this absolutely wonderful explosion of Star Wars Jedi philosophy that really helped me as a human being on the day I happened to be reading it.
That's great. I can't wait to even explore that more and even hear about it more off air. I love when Star Wars does that, and I love that it found you on this particular day and almost to this particular moment. And a big lesson there too of change and growth, and something we always talk about is big Star Wars themes. But you mentioned in terms of the style, more than even any of the other authors in High Republic, Daniel Jose Older has a great style, and it's very conversational. It's almost like he's sitting at a bar with us, telling you the story of the High Republic,
Yeah.
and he's using very modern, not even about terms. There was a couple times where I even kind of paused. It's just like there's a lot of talk about, oh, did you it's almost as if the character's like, oh, what, you listen to a true crime podcast, like, but it was in terms of holos and music and pop stars and all that stuff. I know without a doubt exists, and I wanted to explore more in Star Wars. But there was a couple times my walls went up, which is just silly. Like, I don't want Star Wars to be some lifeless, prim and proper prose or too sci-fi. That's one of my biggest critiques of some of the Zahn stuff, right? So I got to be consistent in that, I guess. And I think you're right. There was a little moment of this. it's okay that this flows in a different way with a different energy than other Star Wars things I'm familiar with. So yeah, I went through that journey too.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm glad that we're on the same page, and I think it is a good exercise in growth. And now I really try to read it when something pops for me of like being like, yeah, that's pretty modern. There's nothing about it that is like you're saying. There's nothing about it, especially in the book land where there's lots of Star Wars books of all kinds where they just talk about getting up in the morning and drinking calf and catching up with the hollows, and it is just like okay, it's Star Wars still, but yeah, they're drinking coffee and talking about the television show they watched.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a part of the book world of Star Wars that stuff gets emphasized. But yeah, sometimes when I read a more modern turn of phrase or joke, I am almost now to the point where like I'm happy because that means that younger people are seeing themselves in the galaxy, right? Or seeing their way of talking or a turn of phrase that's just common to them.
Yeah, yeah, and the book talks a lot about how the students will lead the teachers, right? So
Yes.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah. My last overall thought that I wanted to share is I think I just need to own up to my bias, Ken,
Mm,
which is one of my very favorite characters in the High Republic is Reith Silas.
yeah,
Um, and Daniel Haze older. There's even a great entry on Wikipedia about it. He had been public on Twitter about he worked a little bit to get into Reith Silas's voice, his style. That he found it challenging. That he reached out to Claudia Gray when writing Silas, and I think ultimately he just nailed it.
mm,
Reith is absolutely one of my favorite characters. This was the exact same Reith that I've read in other books, and that one of the many stories in this book is Reith's journey to becoming a Jedi Knight. Oh man, did I love that! And I definitely want to make sure that we try to talk about all the character threads. But I'm going to acknowledge my bias because I might keep bringing up Reith.
oh, that's great. I love your connection to Reith, and yeah, I think in the end, Reith's emerging as one of my favorite characters in the High Republic. So good stuff.
Yeah, very powerful. All right, let's get into what was at stake in this book, the big themes, the big ideas. I usually try to, for our book discussions, break down what I kind of see as some of the big ideas. Then Ken and I discuss them. So I'm starting here, Ken, with one of the main ideas of this book I felt was finding your path or identity. So we had many main characters, or even we could call them perspective characters, characters where we were literally seeing events from within their head, their description
Mm,
of events and in getting access to their thoughts. So each of our main characters or perspective characters struggle to find the way forward. They're making major decisions about life choices, and in many instances in this book, they are actually changing the direction of their lives. So, a couple specifics to highlight this theme, this idea. Reith makes this theme explicit. He is explicitly struggling to find his path. He's
yeah.
thinking about it in a obviously it's a metaphor, but he's literally using the word path of what is my path. Comes this place where he accepts that there is no path, so he can't be lost,
Mm.
and becomes a Jedi Knight, proving that he is indeed on some kind of path. Do you say Ram or Rom in your head, Ken?
I think I say Ram because what's his name? Jamaram?
Ram Jamaram,
Jamaram.
or Rom Jamaram, or
I think Rom's probably more how I say it in my head, but I think out loud I want to say Ram, not just because it looks like Ram, but just because the inherent poetry of his full name. But Rom
yeah,
is how I say it in my head. Yeah.
yeah. I say Ram, so we'll have a traditional Star Wars discussion
Yeah.
where I say Ram, you say Rom, and maybe someone will let us know what it is. Maybe Markion or Marchion Rowe will let us know if it's Rom or Ram.
Yeah. Maybe Marek Thompson will figure it out in his audiobooks. Yes.
Excellent. So anyway, going on with the supporting ideas of the theme of finding your path, Ram goes through this crisis where he basically feels emotionally either nothing or everything. His friendship with Reith, the advice from Reith helps him find balance in his emotions. Zine is wrestling with whether to run away from the Jedi and Vernestra Rowe or not. Cantum's backstory shows their choice to walk away from the Jedi and their choice to return. And this great story about the detour that they needed to define their path.
Mm.
Comac Vitus, ultimately at the end of the book, chooses the path of walking away from being a Jedi at all. The new character that we meet here, Crash. Crash's identity is defined by being an expert security agent, but in response to this evolving conflict that she's involved in, she walks away from that identity to become a resistance leader. So lots of ideas of paths, lots of changes in paths. What are your big picture thoughts on this theme, Ken? Did you relate to it? Take inspiration from it? Where'd you go?
All of the above, and this is what really started to emerge by the end, was some surprising decisions and things I hadn't thought about. So, yeah, related to the feeling we kind of all have when we're younger of not quite seeing the path forward, or the pressure you might feel of thinking this is it. Meaning, I get one way forward. I better get it right. My high school guidance counselor said I need to get on that 4-year plan. If I don't, my life, I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't go to Syracuse to be a broadcaster, which was Ken in ninth grade. So I just saw a lot of myself in parts of Ram, a little out of my element at times, right? But passionate about the things he loves. And then I really saw myself in Comac and Reith. Not to step on your Reith love here.
No, please do.
Man, going back to the beginning, page 39, this was one of the things I wrote down immediately of Reith, just kind of description about him being, he just needed a moment to breathe is kind of what he's thinking to himself here, to be. And then the path ahead would be revealed to him. He was sure of it. And in the end, yeah, a path might emerge. And I do believe in that. Quiet your mind, sell it, and just kind of your gut will maybe tell you the way forward. There's different ways to get there for all of us. But it was that last part of the sentence of he was sure of it. And that's the one thing you can never be sure. A path will emerge. And even if then you're like, is that the right path? And that just started to go into my adulthood. And so I just connected with that. And then because I am an adult. And by the way, like I said, this book is for everyone, without a doubt. I'll make some jokes every now and then about it being at my mental level. That's only because I feel 15 still. But in Comac's story, I see someone still learning, even when they thought they had a lot of it figured out. And I'm less inspired by the story. But his leaving kind of has me wondering what's going to happen to him in a curious way, where I'm like paying close attention to it. Because if he can change, what can I change? Or if he can have doubts, where am I having doubts? Where do I need to double down on that? Cantum tells Reith, being a Jedi isn't about having the answers, it's about knowing which questions to ask, even if some of those questions span centuries and generations. And that, though it's to Reith, also applied to some of the stuff with Comac. You'll hear me say it kind of a lot in some Star Wars. Hey, I don't know all the answers sometimes. And I think that's, we in this pundit business, in this podcast business, we're analyzing and we are putting out there what we think the answers are. In Comac's story and his decision in the end, I literally went, wait, did I read that right? Why did you do that? Why did you do that? Because I was kind of agreeing with you at some points in this book. And then all of a sudden, and it left me with this like, okay, I don't have the full final answer about what I think about Comac's decision. I just think I needed to follow him on this journey and follow his change and where he goes.
Yeah. Boy, you said a lot of great things, pulled out a lot of great moments. I think for me, a couple things that were moving about it is I think that in society and in our cultures, sometimes we only think of decisions as proactively doing something, right? Here's what I accomplished. Here's the new journey. And sometimes what our path is knowing when to say no to something or knowing when to walk away from something. Yeah. And I love that little bit. I love Cantum's story. I love that in order to find their place within the Jedi Order, their place within the Force, they had to walk away and they had to come back and choose the Jedi, right? Because walking away from it was the only way that they were going to know it was right for them. Yeah. And I love that Comac leaves, Cantum's like, I didn't tell you the story to try to convince you to do anything, right? But for me, it's really powerful in Comac's story that I don't think Comac has the answers. I think Comac just knows, like, I can't be here right now. Yeah. Doesn't even matter if I'm right about, maybe I'm right about how the Jedi should be facing the Nihil challenge. I'm torn up inside. I don't have a center right now. This isn't where I should be. And right now, my path is walking away. That was really powerful for me. I think Reith's journey was really powerful for me because I think like Reith is expressed in many of the books, but in particular this one, that thought that our paths as individuals are things for us to discover, and all of the noise and the connections and the events outside of our control, big events in the world, are like distractions.
Mm.
From I'm going to meditate, I'm going to make a 5-year plan, and then I'm just going to do it, and everything else is a distraction.
Yeah.
Here's this passage on page between page 62 and 63, which was just brutally relatable from Reith. He had no idea how he was supposed to find answers to any deep questions, like how to be a Jedi, when every 5 minutes he had to pack his bags and run off to this planet or this station, getting attacked, barely surviving, then doing it all again. He was tired. That was the thing. He was tired. And every day seemed to take him further and further from the answers he needed. Like, that passage has cool Jedi stuff in it, stations and getting attacked. But like, how many of that is like, I had to do this podcast. Like, I need
Mm.
to get new passport photos. I had to apply for a new job. This isn't part of my journey. This is just all the bullshit taking me away from what I need from my path. And, Reith coming to see like, well, all of this is your path. Because
Yeah.
this is when you were born. This is what the people around you need. This is who you want to be. You're making choices every second. You're already on the path, even though it doesn't feel like it, because you've got this paradigm in your head that the path is this perfect, isolated thing over here.
Beautiful stuff here. This chapter 7 starts with Corellia. Is that where Reith's path lay? Like, I love that. No, what you're describing too and boiling it down here, Joseph, is this big Star Wars thing of, I think you and I kind of have this idea of, Luke staring on out of the twin suns, wondering how he's going to get there. And he's already heading there. He just doesn't know it. Right. And it's so easy to look back and be philosophical, be like, oh, those failures, those obstacles, they were just building you to be what you needed to be at the time. Like, that was a bunch of failure and pain and hurt and heartbreak. How dare you? Do I have to go through that? And Reed's just kind of like, it's a different, he's experiencing that. And so therefore, being a little older, you can look at it and go, I feel you, Reith, but hold tight. But also at the same time, like, I'm like, man, how am I going to pay rent next month? What path am I on? And it's like, I'm already there. So it's easy just to hide behind the philosophy, not hide behind, but just like speak from this philosophical Star Wars point. But I love Reith just actively struggling with this.
Yeah. And I think it is true that, we can be swept off our path, that we can really have an idea of what we want to do, and we can allow ourselves to be distracted. But like, that's not what's happening to Reith. Like, he has a goal. It is to be a good Jedi, and he was born at this time, and these are the challenges, and these are the people in his life, and these are the choices he can make, and it's all right there in front of him. I love that. Yeah. And then just very quickly, I think for me, a part of this whole theme that was so resonant, it would have been regardless, but for me, the shock of selling that house and being really sad about it is a great Star Wars thing of it's okay to be sad. There's nothing wrong with that. Just let yourself be sad. I know that it was my path. It was time to let go. But the house also represented a lot of what's being wrestled with here is those big life choices. And, because when we bought the house, it was kind of for a different life. And then we didn't end up having that life. So it's not just a house. It's this physical symbol of, I could have taken this path. My wife and I could have taken this path, and we took another. And oh no, have we just been wandering, or have we been on a path? And that fear that you're wasting your life because you're heading down a bunch of different paths instead of just having this great, absolutely, I charted it out. I'm constantly moving forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really do. Sorry, this is a great chapter too. Which talk about it. This we're on the Starlight Beacon before all hell breaks loose there, of course, and Reith going through all the stuff, and to hear Comac, and this is where he first kind of is like, "There's a darkness welling inside me. I don't know what it means. I need help." Or Johnny's trying to help me, suss it out. They're literally saying, and she's a way seeker. It's just, it's like your mind can go to 15 different paths at once, and to make sense of it is so difficult. But that's part of the journey, I guess.
Yeah. And part of what I think makes this idea and this story so rich. So we talked about it big picture, but I want to dive into a couple of specific choices that characters make about their paths. Shockingly, I'm going to bring up Reith again. So because in some ways his story has an actual kind of beginning, middle, and end. A chapter of his novel is in this book. So Reith is knighted at the end of the book, and he tries to accept this wisdom that there is no path, so he can't be lost. It comes from Yoda himself, so pretty good source of wisdom. And he tries to kind of push back, but saying like, well, isn't that just an excuse that people who were lost would use, that there's no path? which is so relatable and so human. They're like, isn't I don't want to let myself off the hook like that. But Yoda, presses him on it to say, but how can you be lost if there's not a path? Uh, but all this is coming, and Reith is in this moment of confusion, of laughing and crying and
Mm.
losing his master. Why do you think Reith was knighted? Why do you think that the other Jedi, his master in particular, Comac, thought that this was the moment for Reith?
And, it's it's so funny. It's like he's in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he went searching for the ultimate answer, the ultimate question, and he gets the answer, and it's like you're 42. Well, it turns you might be asking the wrong questions, and I think through this whole kind of creative, crazy process of him trying to find the right questions to ask, he faced the trials of life, man. Like, you ever work at a movie theater like I did, and someone comes in and says, "Can I get the student discount? Because I attended the School of Life." Ha! I would never give them a discount. Would never give them a discount. Get away with your old humor. But Reith he earned this knighting by his actions more than this knowledge, which you're connected with Reith more than I am, which means you've been paying more attention to his beats. But this is someone who started in kind of a isolated environment on Coruscant. He's not hiding, but working with books. He's more on that side. He's a folklorist, right? He wants to do other things, and he has this vision of what it is. And he's been just pushed out of the space plane. I was going to say pushed out of the plane with a parachute, but like pushed out and forced to kind of live. And he's the trials aren't from a book. The trials aren't from a test, and he faced them on the go, and it makes sense. And I even love. I'll kick it back to you after this, Joseph. But I even love that. Obviously he always wanted to be knighted, but how he pictured this moment different, more pomp, more circumstance. He pictured only one way to get knighted. And through this part of the journey, he was exposed to the truth. The older you get, the less you know. And all this time, they say all this time, all this fighting, all this death, and I haven't learned anything except how little I know. And it's like, ha, there you go. You're a knight now. You know the truth. And Yoda's saying the hardest lesson to learn, this is one of the most important, which is weird to, think of Yoda in the future also saying you must unlearn what you've learned. Anyways, all that to say, that's my answer. Trials of life, man. He went to the School of Life.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's the big picture thing. I think on like a practical level, I like that the book really shows us that he has trained hard, right? We meet
Yeah, yeah.
him as somebody who is kind of obsessed with books. The force doesn't flow through him as naturally. He kind of has to work at it, but
Mhm.
he's such a student. He's such a I would like to get A's. I want to do my best. That he's a better lightsaber fighter than Comac, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a big evolution from where he was at when we met him, right? When he's like, I don't like sparring lightsabers. I don't really care about that. And now he's great. So there's the literal training up at everything it means to be a Jedi in terms of all of the skills. And I think that he's gone on this journey. I went back because I wanted to make sure that I was on board with this phrase that he's wrestling with when we meet him about from now on, I'm putting us first.
Yeah.
And there's this passage that sets up his journey at the end of the book where we meet him, Claudia Gray's book. You read this quickly. Reith says, I thought I was sure. He's speaking of his path. But before I left for the frontier, Master Jorah asked me a question. She said, when I knew the answer, I'd know why we needed to leave Coruscant. She asked me why no Jedi can cross the Kyber Arch alone. Now I understand. No one crosses it alone because the Arch itself wouldn't exist without all the Jedi Knights that have gone before, both the ones who fell in battle and the ones who built the Arch for others to remember. I was giving the Order only as much of me as I wanted to give. It was all about me, not about us. From
Mm.
now on, I'm putting us first. So this
Mm.
is kind of a lesson that he took from his former master,
Yeah.
moving into being a Jedi of the frontier and accepting that he can't just hang out in awesome libraries on
Yeah.
Coruscant for his own individual joy. And then I love at the beginning of this book, he's wrestling with, okay, I decided that. I decided that sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
The hell does that sentence mean?
Yeah.
And I think that that's ultimately his journey is I feel like the other Jedi who are watching him, Comac in particular, knows that he's a Jedi who is at risk of turning into himself, who is at risk of becoming too uptight about facts and knowledge and never moving forward and making it about himself and what he holds, what he knows. And through his actions, as you said, he demonstrates the focus on us, right? All when there's a clear need for like, I need to just throw myself into that pile of Nile and do what is necessary for the group. I never chose to have my path forward be slaughtering a bunch of marauding Nile, but that's what I have to do. And I
Mhm.
think through his actions, he's choosing us. So I think the Jedi know what different Padawans' personal trials are. And for Reeth, it was about, can you stop being obsessed with your path, your knowledge, uptight, restrictive thinking? Can you open yourself up and serve the group? And you did. So you're a knight.
Yeah. Lovely. And, oh, great to pull that stuff in from the Claudia Gray book. I forgot about that bridge riddle that he solves through that way, like you said. Yeah. Again, Reed pictured this moment different, and that was about himself. So there you go. Now you're united the right way,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
this way.
And the Jedi Knight ceremony I really love too, because I think I've had that experience. I know other people have, where there are big life events that you picture it in this sort of perfect Instagram way, to
Yeah.
use modern parlance, where you picture it all processed and perfect, and life goes on. Like my wedding was amazing, beautiful, everything that everybody ever said it would be, and a bunch of dumb little things went wrong because it's a human event, you know. So
Yeah.
Reese being like, I always thought it would be like this and like that, and doves would sing. Like, nope, you're crying after a battle.
Yeah, and it's never going to be easy, right?
Mhm.
And it's just part of this the ongoing process of change is dealt with in the book. But yeah, anyways, love
Yeah.
that stuff.
So, what did you think of Ram's path or Rom's path? This idea that he's feeling nothing, then he feels this flood of anger, and then he uses positive emotions to find balance within that flood of negative emotions. Did that work for you? What are your thoughts there?
It really ended up working quite well. I'll mention now. I'll definitely mention it again. I love this character of Rob. I think I've always enjoyed him from his debut, and he's clearly Daniel Jose Older has a lot of passion for this character. I'd love to see how much. And I don't listen to every interview out there, but I'd love to see how much of him is in this character. Right? It just
Mm.
seems to be there's a lot of things that connect, or just the energies there. Anyways, sometimes I just want to go, Rabe, get out of the room. Like sometimes I'm just a little more like, God bless you, Ramp, go away. But man, this really started to. I looked at Ram in a different way, and I got him, and I connected with him. Um, I always. I always reference on ForceCenter bumper sticker philosophy, and I was using it in a conversation over lunch the other day with a friend, and they almost took offense to it. Like I was like, "You're so good at boiling things down, like bumper sticker philosophy." He was like not saying it's like cheesy catchphrases. I'm just the world's complicated, and I'm the type of person. I don't live my life by Google calendars or spreadsheets or even outlines. Sometimes on podcasts, you can tell all listening. I just need to have things boiled down. The big conversation of balance with Jedi. You know, I've had so many conversations about it. I got it more than any other time with Ram. And it's actually Reith describing it to him on page 324, saying, right. Each emotion is a tool. And once you felt it, now it's in your utility card. And you know how to recognize them. So you can use one to balance the other, maybe. You can't be all empty, unfeeling all the time. That's not balance. You'd be a droid, but you can't run around blowing up everybody's comm links either. And I connect with that a lot, where I'm so detached and stoic sometimes. And then I'm also angry and throwing something across the room, and I can't find that balance. And I struggle with it all the time as a person, as a partner, as just and even an entertainer, what I want to put out in the world. And there's
Mhm.
just something so simple about what Rom, and it shows up a little bit later. Oh, I feel the rage. I feel the rage. That is real. Anger is real. How do I counter that? What's in my heart that I have to counter that? There you go. And now we're even. Anger is always going to be there. Yoda's never saying, run away from anger when he's talking about stuff with Anakin. It's bigger conversations, but it was boiled down to this just simple utility cart thought process. So thank you, Ram, for your journey. You helped me understand balance better.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the character in this book. I think a lot of characters are in the High Republic, and in this book in particular, are going through that. Like, look, anger and pain and sadness, those are all real. You're going to feel them. They're not necessarily to be denied. They are to be coped with, and make sure that they don't translate into destructive action, or an action that you didn't really choose, but you only chose in a moment of anger.
Yeah.
Um, and this was yet another permutation of that. And I love that it is a story of like pretty straightforward literal balance.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes so much sense for Ram, because he is all about fitting parts together, right?
Yep.
So I love that, Wreath is just being like, they're tools, right? And if you are putting too much pressure
Mhm.
with your anger tool, remember your friendship tool and twist the other way a little bit,
Mhm.
and then the parts all fit together. It's great.
And I wish Anakin later on, him a tinkerer himself, right?
Yeah.
Wants to put things together. Yeah, I wish he would spend some time with Ram.
Yeah, I could read old Ram's journal. That would have been great. I wanted to be sure to talk about the journey that the character Crash goes through. A lot of great stuff with that character. But she shares her reasoning for making this big divergence of her path on page 380. She says neutrality, the performance of it, was something powerful people demanded of everyone else so they could stay protected. In Crash's case, she was literally doing the protecting, the performing. It was all a lie and not one she had the luxury of participating in anymore. That is a big political statement. Definitely something that we can talk about in the context of Star Wars, the High Republic, context of the real world. But it really jumped out to me, and I was really curious about your insight because you have in your life been a security professional like Crash in the real world. How did you feel about this journey and this framing of the danger of protection?
Yeah, it's real interesting. You challenged me in a great way with this question. I had to sit and kind of think about what I mean of it. Yeah, a retail security background that turned into a public safety background, director of public safety, and at give any given time had the safety of 20,000 people in my hands. Right, like how do we do this, and who do we call, and what do we do, and then also there executive protection is an actual line of work I did not do, but I actually have been an executive protector at certain times.
Hmm.
Guarded Jewel, Pink, and Mini Driver along the way. So I love this story. It was really I love little details of it. The Crash is a great character, but I thought about what you're asking here, and this choosing sides, a big Star Wars thing, and when you find yourself in this kind of tough position. So follow me here and see where my answer takes us. I talk often about what I feel some of the core issues of the world, and we're having a lot of talks about law enforcement and the best ways to do it, and protection and public safety, and then spirals out to the country, our borders, all these kind of things. And one of the core issues, I think it's lost in all the policy and funding and training talk and protests and everything is some I've talked about on the show before here of the hardening of the heart,
Mm.
because what starts in this line of work, and to be blunt, I just don't think people, when you're talking about some of the other issues which are valuable, I just think it shows a lack of understanding of the job, of those in this job. And when you take this kind
Mhm.
of thing, and you have to have a certain level of detachment when you're doing this. You have to be able to pull back and see the um, the things going on. I think it was described as a symphony, right? At one
Mm.
point,
Mhm.
and I think Daniel Jose Older in his thank yous shouted out a professional actually talked about it like that. It's not just fun radio chatter; it's something real and something in action. So I think there's a point here where Crash sees herself in a larger system of destruction and oppression, and that's a big Star Wars thing. That's not something I faced every single day, but there was times, and she faced it in a way that it's more subtle. No, excuse me. The other way, she faced it in a big way. In real life, it's more subtle, is what I want to put in my notes here. And
Mm.
I'm trained in the ways of studying behaviors and what behaviors might mean for people's safety, and how you can deal with that. And wow, I got to tell you, that step's really, really dangerously close to a destructive line of when you start seeing people's behaviors and not seeing the people, and what kind of can push you over that line is when you remain too far detached and then you ignore that voice inside your head that says, "Oh, this was wrong." There's so many times in this book that Crash is just seeing. She's seeing what she knows. She's seeing her business, and towards the end, a lot of it is exposed, and it's exposed in a big Star Wars way. She knows that she has to be careful, and your heart can't be hardened towards these realities. And there's a freedom in this big change she goes through. So. You know what I mean? Like that's what I try to take from it.
Yeah.
It's a big real world. It's smashing real world and Star Wars, maybe messily at times there, but that's where I went with this and trying to analyze this question and what Crash's story meant to me.
I really like what you're saying. What I'm hearing is sort of an idea that makes a lot of sense to me from Star Wars and the real world that you have a job and there are parameters and you're trying to do a good job, and even if you start out with like this great intent, it can slide away from you where
Yeah.
you're so focused on the job that you start to it starts to evolve on you, right?
Yeah.
If your mission is to protect this,
Hmm.
uh and that's a good thing, it's what you're hired to do, but you can start being so focused on that mission that you don't see the humanity around you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And letter of the law versus spirit law comes into play, or policy protocol comes into play, and you hide behind that, or you know, it's and there's just tough situations, and you know, been in hundreds of arrest situations, and it gets ugly fast, and there's gonna always be some ugly things about it, but the breakdown is like I said, this where you start detaching so far back that you can't even find yourself and why you're doing it anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
I think Crash starts. She's really good at this. It's a family business, right?
Yep.
Trust me, that's part of it too sometimes. And I was starting to go down the path of the old family business in another way, and didn't go down that path. Different journey for me. That, anyways, yeah, I think yeah, you're getting it, and tying it to Star Wars. It was really interesting because we never really. We have not dealt with this. Talk about real world stuff, pop stars and holovids and morning cups of calf, and to have the you know. I'm using the term executive protection, but
Mm-hmm.
dignitary, diplomat, whatever. It's a higher level of personal security to protect actual individuals, and here she is protecting really super powerful people. And yeah, I thought it was a real great way to take some real world stuff and put it into Star Wars.
Yeah, I really liked it. The journey that Crash went on, this great Star Wars story of generational importance, that she had all this angst about, can I live up to my mother? I'm inheriting this, I want to be
Mhm.
the very best at this.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose my friends doing this. So much of this is based on the fact that she lost her Grindelid friend.
Mm.
Um so it's a great human story, and I love that the epiphany takes her by surprise almost as much as it takes the reader by surprise. And I want to be sure to hear your informed opinion as somebody who has dealt with security and comes from a family that deals with it. But a part of what I took from it is, I think this is a truth that can happen in Star Wars and the real world about what I would boil down to in terms of bumper sticker philosophy is
Mhm.
stay in your lane.
Mm, mm,
That often people who already have power have a reason to say no one else should have an opinion, and have a lot of manipulations to help you stay in your lane.
yeah.
And in particular, what's happening in this book, that Crash knows that she is perhaps protecting people who have literally brought the Nile to
Mhm,
Corellia,
mhm,
who have brought violence and destruction to Corellia. In this story, explicitly something bad and destructive. And the power of, don't disrupt the system, stay in your lane. I'm going to kind of shake my finger at you, because you said your life goal is to be the greatest security
mhm.
guard ever. Are you really going to let yourself down on your own values? And it's like all of this sort of manipulation that boils down into, stay in your lane. I have the power. Don't question the person who has power, no matter what.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, that's a great insight into it. And I just feel sometimes the lane opens up, and you're like, should I take my heart, soul car over to that lane? And your heart is hardened and it doesn't move. Is what I kind of mean by that. And I remember, yeah, there's a lot of times where you're like, you're doing something because of this job, something particular. And I remember having to tell people, let them go. Well, we need to arrest them. Let them go. That's not what we're here for. That's not what we need to be here. That's not what we need to do now. And it's serving. It's not. That's not even serving us or them at this point. And so I saw a little bit of that with Crash. But you're so right. There was a great moment of her just kind of like realizing her and her rival, or probably one of them, was protecting the person who brought the Nile here. And
Yep.
that, like, whoa, no, no, no. What was I doing? What was my part? I didn't even see that. It was very subtle. The water started boiling, and I didn't feel it.
Yeah, yeah, and then makes that big, impressive path change to make a whole different life change. Were there any other the character paths that you want to touch on? Because there's so much going on in this book.
There is a real beautiful story on Cantham's path, and that we're going to dive into in other different ways. But I just think there was just something there that related to my Star Wars fandom.
Mm,
So we can get the details of the character story later, but their journey made me just. I think I've been conditioned to only think of things like the Lost 20,
hmm
Jedi who have left the Order, which is kind of a different thing. But I was shocked. I kind of muttered, wait. Did much like with later on with Comac, but here with Cantum and the stuff with Yoda, like having them leave the Order to quite literally join the circus for love.
Right.
And this and like this is a flashback, so I knew that Cantum was a Jedi now. So I'm like, how did they reapply for their job? Like what happened? And I just, as a Star Wars fan, you're like, oh yeah, once you're a Jedi, you're in or you're Sith. Like,
right.
And I love that the High Republic's like, no. Obviously, there's so much more to it. And I know there's other material where that's not necessarily true. I'm just talking about when you go around and it's a Tuesday and you're reading a Star Wars book and someone's like, can you leave the Order? I'd probably be like, well, 20 of them have, but we don't really talk about them. And so to see it from this and to see Yoda involved and see it all, especially during a period of time where we're still talking about attachment and Luke Skywalker and Grogu and little chainmail. And we're still having this discussion about attachment and how it relates to the Jedi Order. And some people coming on see, I told you the Jedi Order are bad. Haven't you watched the High Republic? Come on. The Jedi the Old Republic, the Jedi are bad. And I was really moved on Cantum's story in a lot of other ways. But this particular moment, I was like, this is an interesting path and change to be on.
Yeah, I so agree with you. I really thought a lot about the Grogu story in Book of Boba Fett. We did a whole episode about Luke's choice to offer Grogu a choice, but it really felt like, yeah, it's not a bad thing to say no to being a Jedi. It's really important to choose it because it is a particular path and it's a difficult path, and it's okay to walk away from it. And I love this story that Cantum's journey is they needed to walk away from it in order to choose it and return to it. And I love that with Comac of just like, this is, I can't do this right now. Right. It's not like, that I have decided all Jedi bad. Just like, I can't be this right now. Maybe later, maybe never again. But right now, no. I thought those were both really powerful, really interesting perspectives and really rich when you compare them to the story we just got with Grogu.
Yeah. Which now makes me think, at one point maybe Grogu was like, all right, cool. Ready to go back. Thank you.
Yeah. I just don't believe for a second that if Grogu's like, this has been a ton of fun. I'm a little older now. I can speak. I get what Luke was saying. I want to do that again. If he came back to Luke, that Luke would be like, no, you chose.
Yeah.
I think he'd be like, cool, great. You're following your path. You're making your choices.
Yeah. And I liked it. I was encouraged. I was encouraged for that Jedi Order that just been taking a lot of heat lately in pop culture discussions.
A lot of hits. So many big ideas in this book. Let's move on to this big idea of connection and loss. The book deals with strong connection in many forms. There's some a deep platonic love. There's some explicitly romantic love. There's a lot of just plain old physical, intimate attraction. Running down some of the ways that we see this in our main characters, our prospective characters. Xena is struggling with her love of and fear of losing Lula. Those characters, you can follow their story in the High Republic Adventures comics. Xena ultimately decides that she does, after going through a lot of horror, really does want to find Lula and be with Lula. Cantum's backstory is, of course, this love affair with Aether the Acrobat, running away from the Jedi to join the circus and make love. Amazing. Crash and Sivno, the pop star, are attracted to one another. I love the ongoing story of Wreath's attraction to many young women.
I feel you, Wreath.
I love that we just ran it down. Like, Vernestra's pretty cool. I did feel something with Nan. Crash is kind of cute. So he's wrestling with all the normal things that a young person would. And then he also has this new friendship with Rom, this platonic bond that they both find. Rom considers Wreath his new best friend. He's also bonded with the Starlight crew. He is, coming out of his shell and making connections. I love also with Cantum that it's not just their backstory. It is also this current story that Cantum is wrestling with the disappearance of their former master Yoda and the great fear of losing their Padawan Lula. Comac's devastation at losing too many Jedi in general, but particularly realizing that Orla Jarrani is indeed gone. So lots of connection, lots of loss. What are your big picture thoughts on this theme? Do you think attachment's being presented as a strength or a weakness? Where do you go with all this?
I think it settles on the side of strength after wrestling with it like we all do. And we all should still continue to wrestle with it in life and in Star Wars. You just have to know how to handle it, which I think is consistent with all of Star Wars, by the way. But sometimes we've kind of I don't know. We failed in discussing. We failed to take into account the Star Wars characters are speaking from their own point of view. Yeah, I loved all the stuff you're talking about, and I felt more than any of the book you could. I think we made the joke off air. Midnight Horizon, aka When Jedi Get Horny, which is totally awesome because it's very realistic, man. And to see see Padme and Anakin trying to deal with this very, very real connection and love and emotion and how it fits in all of it, and Padme's life and Anakin's life, and to see it played with it here in another way, in a very realistic way. I felt like Reith, that's me in seventh grade. I have a crush. Oh, I have another crush. Oh, there's a crush. I'm gonna have crushes for everybody, and just is very real. And I think at the end of the day, attachment attachment's a strength. Attachment's a strength. And even though sometimes the Jedi Order does maybe hold to narrow dogmatic views, as Palpatine would lie to us. But again, at the end of it, I think it settles on the side of strength.
Yeah, I think so. Ultimately, I think this book is a real argument for the strength of attachment, and really, I think finding other ways to say what I think is in the actual Skywalker saga. Other
Mhm.
people might have a different interpretation or a different emphasis or perspective, and that I totally understand that. But I think it's attachment is good. Attachment is great. Attachment is necessary. Attachment is the force.
Mm.
What is dangerous is the inability to let go, or to feel that fear of loss or that anger because you have lost, and to act on it. That's the danger. And
Yeah.
I love a couple of the moments where this is clearly communicated as strength. It's on
Mhm.
page 282, and this is everything is kind of spiraling out of control. They're heading into increased danger. They're literally losing communication,
Mhm, mhm.
which is a way to support this theme of connection. We can't communicate. We don't know what's going on. Comac, maybe the Jedi who's going through the worst time. Comac thinks, all right, no one else is coming to Corellia. We can't even communicate that there's a major problem on Corellia. And Comac thinks all they had is each other. That was like a moment for me where this book really crystallized and came together, that this is about the strength of attachment.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Cantum has some great thoughts on it in page 287. Shortly later, the masters taught non-attachment. It was part of the Jedi vow. Many Jedi twisted that notion into the opposite of what Cantum understood it to mean. They spoke of suppressing emotions, of forsaking love, bearing any discomfort until it was a mere whisper, but emotions couldn't be mastered. Cantum knew the very idea of mastering something like a feeling seems so ego-driven and reckless. You are reckless. Neither could emotions become the masters of a Jedi, but there were more than those two simple options. More than those two simple options is a great way to look at it. I think this book does. We talk about paths. There's more than one option. There's more than two simple options. So it is with attachment.
Yeah, that's a great pull. I had this other quote that I really liked on page 473, and this is around the time that all the Jedi are sensing the destruction of Starlight after they've been through their own absolute hell on Corellia. The passages, they had struggled each in their own way to find detachment, to breathe through the impending sense of loss, the fear. Each had failed. Each had tried again anyway, and then again, this was the Jedi way. There was no other.
Mm.
I really like that, partially because it's nice to read in a book something that I really feel
Mm.
about the Jedi. We talked about it when we did our episode about Luke and attachment. I think that's what the Jedi are. They are this group of people who choose to try to walk this noble, difficult path. And a
Mhm.
part of walking a noble, difficult path is accepting that you're going to fall, that you're going to
Mm.
trip, and that what makes you a Jedi is trying again to stay on that path. And I really like that passage. I really like that this book is about so many characters clearly getting strength and power and a sense of identity and clarity from the loved ones in their lives, but then being tempted by the darkness that could create in terms of fear and loss, and
Mhm.
then going, nope, 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 I'm going to find a way to cope with it. And that's who the
Mm.
Jedi are.
Coping is an underrated theme going on throughout this book a lot too. I thought.
There's a lot of coping, a whole hell of a lot of coping.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Yoda gives Cantum the advice that emotions are like the wind, and sometimes a hurricane. You are trapped in the center of them. That one hit me like a ton of bricks being blown by the wind. Did that resonate with you?
It did. I want to hear this. I think it's valuable to hear it from you now, but I just, I have a lot of notes. I wrote this one note. Yoda, as always, with some clutch advice. Yeah.
It's a really strong one. It's just such a simple, helpful visual. It was honestly some of this stuff when I was really caught in the throes of being upset about the house. I swear, ForceCenter listeners, I will stop talking about the house I sold. But it's relevant to my sort of thinking about this. Of
Mm.
it so helps to, when you're caught in the middle of an emotion, to feel like that's everything, right? And you have
Mm.
to respond now like that is the only emotion that is or will ever be. And
Right.
just acknowledging I am entirely caught up in this emotion now, and that's okay because it will pass,
Mm.
and just letting yourself be caught up in it, not act on it, not lash out of like, oh, the wind's telling me to be angry, so I'm going to punch some folks. Like, but for yourself, go, I'm sad, I'm mad.
Yeah.
As long as I don't lash out and hurt somebody else, it's okay to just be sad and mad, and this too shall pass.
Yeah, yeah. I want to hear more how this relates. I do want to hear more about your house sale here. I think it's valuable, but I think this is why you and I discuss Star Wars to this level a lot, and why the focus. We have a lot of other. We'll talk about jackets to the end of time here in Star Wars too. But I think you and I, as we get older, find ourselves going back to this little silly space saga for real world help and real world understanding. I like it, but I don't know. It's like I saw someone who's dealt with depression, and hell, who hasn't? But it's something that was pretty serious in my life. At one point, it's just like, you know what? Some days you just have to be depressed. That's the
Yeah.
storm you're in. And as long as my therapist once said, during a dark moment of life, and I got through this one particular incident, I'll just say it with a finger on a trigger, and my therapist was like, "Great, you have impulse control. Now we can deal with the rest." And unfortunately, that's not always the case. And sometimes I think it's because you're overwhelmed when it's hard to just be that depressed or to be that angry and to be it in that moment and then kind of cope with it, process it, and try to find the way forward. I think it's unfortunately meant to be difficult because none of this is easy. So to take this Yoda advice and just, like I said, it's clutch advice, it's bumper sticker advice, but it's
Yeah.
clutch, and you should be able to go back to that there.
Yeah. I love it just as a simple, visual of wind. And when it's really bad, it's a hurricane. You can't sense anything outside of it. And then it gets to me this great spot too of, I think Star Wars always argues that individuals matter. Luminous beings are we. What is happening to us matters, but also what is happening to everybody else matters too. So finding that balance between the individual and the group. And I like this passage on 227 where Yoda kind of connects coping with how it affects the individual and how it affects the group. Yoda says, "You must choose the Force. One does not fall into being a Jedi Knight by mistake, or because it is convenient. You must choose the Force with your whole heart. To do this, you must learn again to listen, to hear the world outside of your own emotions, even when they are very, very loud." A hurricane. And that is, I think, for myself, when I am in a really dark place too, is to take that step back. And it feels like if I'm mad about myself, or maybe even feel like I made a mistake, you're swirling that emotion, and you just feel like when you're angry at yourself, the whole world is seeing you that way, right?
Yes.
And to imagine that, no, that's the hurricane that's swirling around me, and it's true and it's valid to me, but that's not the way everybody is seeing you, right? Or maybe you're angry about something that you think somebody did and they didn't even know it. They never intended it that way, right? Or you've misinterpreted. And to be able to validate your own hurricane but also see outside of it is, I think, what Yoda is arguing for, which is really great.
Yeah. Yeah. Trapped in the center of the emotions.
Yeah. Well, let's move on from deep philosophy about how to get through life to being horny in Star Wars. There is just a much stronger sense of sexuality, intimacy, physical attraction in this book. It's not that it's not there in other Star Wars stories. It is. Hello, Dark Disciple. Do you want a larger sense of sexuality, intimacy, physical attraction in more Star Wars stories?
I actually do. You mentioned Dark Disciple. It's been used effectively in other books as well. The Rising Storm had Zelzar Man, right? And Aftermath has had some of that.
Rebel Rising, there's some intimacy with Jyn and the friend.
Yeah, Leia, Princess of Alderaan, deals with her first relationship. So I don't need Star Wars to take its clothes off. but I do think I need Star Wars to explore this powerful part of our lives. I think it has at times, but this book, a young adult novel, handled it the most realistic so far. Where again, if it's here I am, if I'm 45, I'm still dealing with stuff, but like if I'm 16, 17 reading this Star Wars book, this is going to feel a lot different, right? And feel more real. Again, going to the wreath joke I made, but just like, I thought this book really dealt with it in a great way. And it wasn't young love. It was love. It spoke to the people experiencing it, sat down and talked with them about it, and how powerful it can be, how distracting it can be, or how wonderfully distracting it can be, and how purposefully distracting it can be. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to understand, and the High Republic era has applied some just real world tones to Jedi and their thoughts about those around them, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I really like seeing a more fleshed out, total, organic being experience. I was gonna say human experience, but lots of aliens in Star Wars. A that sexuality is a part of life. Everything from Wreath just having crushes because he's young,
Yeah,
and Wreath being like, she's pretty and smart and all these things, and like not being able to kind of figure it out, but it's just a crush, right? To Cantum being like, I need to have this relationship. But once I go and explore that, I'm like, good, figured out what it was. But I had to explore it to figure out what it was.
Yeah.
To like clearly, like for me, Zine and Lula's connection is all sorts of levels of depth, but there's a physicality within it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that it's just one of the many factors in their huge attachment. So it's reflected in the complexity of it is reflected, and I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been seeing a couple of articles starting to flow around that a sense of like there's still romance in movies, but like a sense of sexuality, a sense of honestly people just being horny
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is disappearing from some genre storytelling. And I think that for me, I love wizards and aliens and spaceships, but I want to feel that humanity. I certainly don't want just like sex thrown in to sell it,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Yeah.
want to feel like those characters are really, really real. And one of the things about being real is sometimes having a sense of just, wow, those two people can barely talk without kissing.
Yeah.
That kind of palpable desire for one another. I don't want R-rated Star Wars. I don't want Tatooine Nights, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru story, but I want to feel like.
Sorry. Sorry.
It's okay.
I heard the saxophone playing.
Yep, the twin suns go down, and so do Owen and
Yeah.
Brew.
Yeah.
It's easy to make those jokes, but like the next time on The Mandalorian that Din is attracted to someone, I want to feel it that he's working hard not to take that helmet off. I want to feel that reality.
I think, yeah, and this maybe goes outside the walls of Star Wars discussion. You brought up just how some of it might be disappearing, and I think that's okay in the way of if we're recalibrating how we're telling those stories, right?
Right, exactly, and that might be a big part of it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's like even going to discussions around Rey, I always was kind of like I don't need her to be distracted by that unless she wants to be, right? And I'm gonna make sure I let this character exist in this world if she wants. But Kylo's got his shirt off, and she's kind of like, well, all right, let me turn away. There's something very real about that, and I wouldn't be opposed to exploring that more in Star Wars with the right way. It needs to be not just needs to be Disney safe. They can put it on Hulu if they want, but for kids, but like that, I think how to properly deal with it because and by kids I mean teenagers who are already dealing with it, and I think that's always been forgotten. But anyways, going back to the big romance conversation, Star Wars, we did that a big sweep in romance wasn't super present in the sequel trilogy era, but it's very realistic when done right.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that. And it was just nice. It was nice to deal with, and again, it was a respectful but realistic way to address it.
Yeah, absolutely, and yes, it really does need to be handled well, and I think it was in this book. Were there any other character connections that you wanted to discuss? There's so much going on in this book.
There is a lot. There's a lot, but I think you touched on all the big ones. The big ones there. I do like the growing friendship between Reith and Ram of how that even
Mm.
happens in life when suddenly you're like, I think I have a new friend. I don't even know how that happened. What's my new friend? What does that mean? And how that sometimes an old friend can be like, hey, what about me? What about me? And you're like, well, hey, we're growing apart. The only thing we have in common is our past. But here's my new friend. I've been dealing with that a lot in the last couple of years. So I like that one as well.
Yeah, that was great. I really loved the scenes where Cantum finds Lula, um,
Mm.
and Lula mirroring what he did, reaching out with their hand to save that boy.
Oh,
That was great. That was great.
that's great.
And then one of the other just moments of connection that I really loved is that Yoda, in his wisdom, knew that he needed to let Cantum go and explore their own path.
Mm.
Uh, and even though Yoda knew he was making the right decision, he was still sad. Like
Yes.
that is the one of the parts that really helped me when I was feeling sad. Is just that, like, it's like we were talking about before. It's okay to feel sad, even when you know for sure you're making the right decision. It's still okay to be sad.
Yeah, I really love that. I love that in terms of what you're discussing with your real life stuff there too about letting yourself experience feelings is something that can affect us in the real world where we don't want to, and then and you feel like it's overwhelming. That hurricane, you feel like you're not going to get past that sadness. No one wants to experience sadness. You
No,
know, I
sucks.
I experience it every time I get to the last bite of my sandwich. Very sad that this meal's ending, but I must move on. But no, jokes aside, it was that's a great little moment there for Yoda to actually be like, yeah, this kind of sucks, man.
Yeah, just that flash of Yoda being bummed out and like, well, got to do it.
Sucks. This does.
One other big picture idea that I wanted to be sure to talk about is just this kind of idea of class, not in terms of like, hey, that's a classy person, but that idea of the structure of
Hmm.
class and the politics of it. Um, so there's the overall story of the High Republic has been very conscious of class and power structures in the galaxy, the core worlds versus the Outer Rim. We meet lots of powerful politicians and Jedi and the very wealthy, like the Santekas and the Grafs. But we also meet a lot of working people, professionals, just trying to get by, like Affie Hollow and Silvestri Yarrow and Crash in this book. There's obviously the message of we are all the Republic is partially about breaking down those class barriers.
Yeah.
And then here in Midnight Horizon, there's some even more blatant kind of class issues on the table. A lot of the plot revolves around the idea that the core worlds assume they are safe from the Nile. That's an Outer Rim problem, right?
Yeah.
That incredibly cruel party where the wealthy Corellians wear Nile masks and really downplay, particularly to Ram, the horror of some of the things that have been done. Ultimately, we learn that this politician, Nomar Trolmot, has made a deal with the Nile to stage some attacks to generate fear of outsiders and make Corellia for Corellians. Grindelwald life is seen as less than in some moments. They live in the sewers. They're less than us. So how did the story of class on Corellia contribute to this big picture of High Republic politics and storytelling for you?
I think it crystallized it. I think you mentioned like the Lena So and the great works, and the big real true struggle of that is how do we do this right? How do we literally build freeways to connect everything? But how are we doing it? And how that's important, and the people how people are going to take that. It's always going to be a struggle. I always think of even Pablo Hidalgo writing about the Starlight Beacon and thinking, yeah, one side's kind of the Jedi temple, the other side's the industrial, and you're going to have a different point of view on each side depending on where you're standing on that beacon. I'm paraphrasing him there. So to see it all just in narrow focus here on Corellia, it eventually really connected with me. I think I was meandering through it at first, and I think Crash becomes a great way to look at it. What a great she is detached or trying to be and looking at all this at play. And by the time they got to that party, and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you could sell a party to anyone on any level as a let's mock the Nile party.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot going on at the party, yes. But the fact that some people were probably like, oh, yes, let's put on some of those Nile masks I hear about on the hollows. It's like, oh, yeah. We got some disconnection here. And you and I talked about in the book of Boba Fett a lot about power. Power can corrupt and power is greed, but also power on just a real simple level can just disconnect you from literally having your feet on the ground and understanding other people's plights. And I think that's when it really started to hit in what we're seeing going on here in Corellia.
Yeah, I really loved it. I think that, getting into the core worlds when so much this has been about reaching out to the outer rim and the
Mhm.
idea that that's not a us problem.
Yeah.
We're powerful and safe. We're the core worlds. That's a them problem, even to the point where you can be so desensitized as to kind of joke about it with
Mhm.
the masks. I thought was really a visceral, emotional way to get at this idea. Big picture, I think that the storytelling that's been happening in the High Republic story that I really love is that there is this fragile hope for making things better. That like
Mhm.
Lena So in the Jedi and many of our other heroes are like everybody is of value. The fact that our galactic society is fractured between lower class and less than or upper class and less than
Yeah.
is wrong, and we're trying to fix it. And denial coming from this place of cynicism are like we can exploit this.
Mm.
We can keep targeting that wound and attacking it and telling people this will
Yeah.
never get better. The people who are trying to make it better can never make it better. And it's complicated and real. And it's also as simple as hope and fear, right?
Yeah.
People are trying to lean us so our heroes are trying to communicate the hope that this problem could get better. And the Nile are trying to appeal to the fear that it never can.
Star Wars never needs to move away from that hope and fear, hope versus fear, hope in the fear moment where you and I always go back to, and everyone goes back to if you're a Star Wars fan who deals with themes. That needs to always be there, and this was present. I love what you're saying too, is this what I've loved about this High Republic era, and trying to get it right and trying to find the best way forward of how I'm sure there's some people in Corellia and those core worlds who are like, oh yeah, absolutely, let's connect the outer rim and everything. Here's some money. Please don't invite them over.
Yes.
Please don't. I think there's probably some of that, and that's just as dangerous as those who are like gates up. It's all kind of the same. And again, to use this crash, seeing it through a different eye, and it really ended up connecting with me versus the beginning part. There was a couple. I'm saying that because there was a couple moments earlier. It's like, why are we doing this? What are we following this pop star for? I'm having a bad day. I'm not picking this up here. And credit to Daniel Jose Older having to work through my confusion and busy schedule. He didn't know he had to do that as an author, but he did. And it really was very effective.
Yeah, really powerful. Well, we have spent a bunch of time talking about the big ideas and themes. Our book reviews always go long because there's so many big ideas. Before we take a quick break and talk about some of the individual moments we enjoyed, is there anything else from the kind of big picture or thematic perspective that you wanted to bring up, Ken?
I don't want to make this 3 hours, but just real quickly, just the room for change and growth. It was important. I think all of us, and I'm someone who I think has gone through some changes, big and small, in my life the last 3, 4 to even 5 years. And there's a lot of people in my life, you included, Joseph, as friends who have just allowed me to change and
Mm.
allowed me to grow the growth time, and it allowed me to see where I want to go or not go, right? And to see how I get there and not club me over the head with a frying pan or not pulling back and there has and some of the people going back to finding new best friends. So there's some folks who have pulled back from me because they're not going to give me any room to change. And I think Comac for me goes through a lot. Everyone goes through that, but even his big thing at the decision is a little bit of like, hey, I might want to do something different. I need to go figure this out. And Yoda's like, cool, got it. Hand over your blade. They nod quietly. And I think that was very important to me. I also like Ram early on, page 18, kind of talking about the importance of being part of a solution. It's a good starting point for bigger journeys and bigger changes too.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's a really great way to crystallize some of the ideas in the book as well of like giving ourselves room to change and receiving from others the room to change, right? That's
Mm.
the continuing Star Wars theme of the individual and the group. And I think that to me ties with into the what is my path and Aretha's obsession with like, I need to be able to figure it out, know that I'm on it,
Yeah.
document it, measure how well I'm doing on this path. And that's just sometimes not the honesty of life and kind of letting ourselves off the hook, not in terms of responsibility or making good definitive choices about life, but letting ourselves room for change. Exactly what you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
To say like, well, I don't control everything, and there's these parts of myself where like I want to do these things with my life, but I also want to do these other things, like performing. Like I've had moments of crisis of like, but that's one of my nouns. That's who I am.
Yeah.
I have to find a way. And like, well, I didn't started a worldwide pandemic,
Yeah.
you know, and to give yourself room for change, which is to not say that, well, I'm no longer performing, I'll never perform again, but like to allow myself to come to peace with performance can't be as big of a priority as I have made it in my life
Mm,
right now.
mhm.
But I'm not changing forever. I'm just giving myself the room to say, not right now.
Yeah.
And giving yourself that room is so important.
It's important, and Comac, for me, I connect with him kind of being. I mean, going through a journey the entire time. He says it even from the beginning. We highlighted that, but even at one point, we're like, no, this is what I kind of feel. This is kind of what we got to do. To I need to walk away from it all. We'll see where he ends up.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the rest of Comac's journey. I'm very excited for that. A lot of fun moments like that to discuss, and we will when we will be back in just a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of the High Republic adventure, Midnight Horizon, an adventure with a lot of big themes. If you hadn't read the book and just are hearing our discussion, you would think that this is the most serious book. But it's full of not just philosophy, but action, comedy, insight, all that. So we always like to highlight just a couple of isolated moments we particularly enjoyed. So be it, we'll talk about action separately, but be it comedy, be it insight, be it just a fun moment. What were moments you particularly enjoyed, Ken?
I'm trying to flip through it as soon as I can. There's one moment where literally I wrote down it's Comac's take on tip of the iceberg storytelling. And I'm, oh my gosh, I'm trying. It's on page 90. God, I should have highlighted this. It just was oh, there it is. There it is. Good lads, Kedem said, but also, what the stars are they doing here? And just like Scarlet Skulls, no less. And Comac shrugged. I look forward to finding out. Just it's kind of like you and me in the Star Wars discussion world. Everyone's like, ah! We're just like, I don't know. There'll probably be a comic about it. We'll find out.
Yeah, a good question for another time, to quote Maz Kanata, right? I mean, that is, and that's just so like it's a fun moment, it's a funny moment, but it's also like the truth of life, right? It's a great situation comedy moment of like, yeah, this person was just supposed to show up here, but now their shirt is ripped, they have no pants, there's a bucket on their head and a tattoo that says pizza. I'm sure there's a reason that happened, you know?
Yeah, yeah, love that thing.
Yeah, that's a great one. What are some others?
Yeah, sticking with Comac, some insightful stuff here. Around page 306, it's just kind of as he's going through what he's going through. Again, this is someone who it kind of comes in a moment where he's like, I think I have a handle on what we need to do to deal with this response and everything. But just, I loved some stuff. I says, he even acknowledges, I know what I've said in the past, but these past months, and especially everything that's happening right now, it's changed me, Cantum. The galaxy it's not the one we grew up in. It's not the one the order we know was built for. I don't know where we go from here, but I know if we don't face the new reality head on, it will devour us whole. Now, as a Star Wars fan, you could look at that and go, oh, Comac, wait till you watch The Phantom Menace. You could do that, but like, it goes to this room for change. And I literally have said this statement, but these past months, and especially everything that's happening right now, it's changed me. Insert any friend's name. I said that stuff. And I just thought it was really insightful. Again, going to this ongoing discussion of the Jedi Order. We're in this era where I just get really almost not angry. I get depressed with some of the barbs people toss at Jedi on social media and stuff. I'm like, it's just justice for the Jedi, man. The order is changing, and maybe they're struggling, and they are made of species and beings and humans and otherwise who maybe struggle with change themselves. Just because they have the angle on some good advice doesn't mean they always understand it themselves. And so I just love the insight of the order in this new world and how they need to address it head on.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I really liked Comac kind of making the argument for like the Nile have shown us again and again and again who they are, and they're just leaving us with a choice, you know,
Mm-hmm.
defeat them or not, you know. And I go back to like reading Rising Storm, and
Mm-hmm.
almost. I don't mean this is an insult to the book. I love the scene. I think it's really well written, but it almost is like comedic how much Stellan keeps trying to give them another chance while they're in the midst
Yeah.
of attacking a fair, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
Stellan holds back so much that he gets injured, that Lena So gets injured, and I so relate to the Jedi in this moment of I guess relate's not the right word. I love the philosophical discussion of when does a complex problem just become a choice of Well, you're
Yeah.
going to take this action, or you're going to take this one. And I like that Comax getting worn down. Like, we're not built for this. This is clearly the choice in front of us. We just have to make it or not. We have to fight them or not.
Yeah, yeah. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine the other day at lunch. Shout out to Phil. And I was like, I've got a list, a post-it note full of ideas and projects I want to work on. I just can't figure out the way forward. And he goes, well, you just choose one.
Right? We just don't want it to be that simple, because it's not simple. It's
Yeah.
simple in the truth. It is
Mhm.
not simple the path we take to making that choice, you know?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And even back on page 35 with Reith going through his stuff, and from now on, I'm putting us first. He asked himself this, philosophical question, but he says it was just the type of riddle that the old masters loved to interpret and disagree about. The straightforwardness on the surface only served to conceal enough layers of meaning to get lost in. Who was us to a Jedi? Who was it to the Order? Just great stuff there, as it all ties into what's going on.
Yeah, that was one of my moments that I liked, is Reith thinking about the Nile and
Mhm.
making his choice. Reith says they would never stop until the Jedi stopped them. There was no sitting around hoping this would pass. There would be no figuring out a path ahead for Reith, because the only path ahead led straight through the Nile. There's that acceptance that
Mhm.
I did not make the galaxy this way.
Yeah.
This is the era of the Jedi I was born into. This is the times I was born into. This is the problem, and I now get to choose how I react. And my reaction, Reith's reaction, was jump in there and try to stop the Nile from hurting more people.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that.
A couple moments for me. I'll get my Reith ones out of the way. I liked his ongoing thing, particularly in the first half of the book, when he says, "Of course, when a Padawan laughs, the Force laughs harder."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, or hard luck guy. I love just the ongoing jokes about him just being a real fan of knowledge and libraries. And it's on page 158, where Reith is disgusted to discover that what he thinks are shelves full of info tubes are actually just decorations that look like info tubes, which I just really relate to, as like when you walk into a place like a cool library. Oh, these are fake books. Absolutely great. Another thing I really loved is the Yoda scene where Cantum returns with Lula,
Mm.
and Yoda is trying to use the Force to stop that Hapabor from
Yeah.
falling, while also the Hapabor is giving birth, and it's a fun comedy scene of
Yeah.
Yoda trying to use the Force to capture all of the Hapabors being birthed, and then
The
the sudden
Hufflepuffs.
appearance, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a sudden appearance of Cantum and Lula, and Lula, of course, representing youth the same way the Hapabors did, and the cycle between student and master with Yoda and Cantum, and setting up a bunch of recurring moments where, in this little family, this little chain, someone shows up at the last minute to surprisingly help. I just love that scene.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of beauty in the Cantum story, and a use of going back to the beginning of this big moment in their life. Love the use of it. Weaved in perfectly, built to something. Loved it.
Yeah. Another moment for me is at first when I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is pretty broad comedy of Rom and Reith just kind of flubbing their dub and trying to figure out what's going on, and ending up getting themselves dressed up as these old child assassins, Scarlet Skulls, and it felt a little like kind of old school comedy, a little bit of like
Mhm.
Laurel and Hardy of like, what have we stumbled into? It all paid off for me, and I did really like the idea of there's this group of long forgotten child assassins called the
Yeah.
Scarlet Skulls, and these young Jedi kind of bumbling into getting themselves painted up like child assassins.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah. Any other moments for you?
One that jumped out, and there's a lot, but and it's so funny we're talking about the dealing with a lot of the love, relationships, physical desire, all that kind of stuff. There was that moment that with Crash and Sivno, and they're like getting really close. And as I'm reading it, and they're like, the energy's there, and I just kind of had this like, oh, just blank and get it over with. Like, come on, come on. But then I didn't write down the page. I forgot. But then Sivno's kind of got this really like very insightful kind of a response to Crash that kind of correctly calms the situation down. I was like, all right, I've learned something. Okay. Thank you. But it was a good moment. I love those characters.
Yeah, absolutely great. Last thing for me that I wanted to mention is I like the ongoing story. If you've read all the books and comics with Zine, that Zine has this journey where she is a Force user, not officially a Jedi, but she travels with the Jedi, and that she generally uses blasters. But there's this absolute trust where anytime a Jedi has a problem and they need cover, like, here's Zine, take my lightsaber, in particular with Ram.
Yeah. 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 Love that.
Yeah. So any other moments before we move on to action moments?
No, that's good. No, that's good. We can try to get to some of the action there.
Okay, so what were some of the action moments that jumped out to you? For me, there was this journey where there's definitely some action early on in the book, but then for a while, there's like, oh, there's tension,
Mhm.
and then the book just explodes, and there's massive amounts of action towards the end. So for you, what were those moments that you enjoyed?
I do like some of Ram's big moments there.
Mm,
Leaping out to save the day, taking that ship out, getting to even just meeting the seeing the Star Destroyer and the little Anzellan design and who designed it all. You feel his excitement, and that's one of the
mhm.
things I do love about Ram. At the end of the day, even though at times I want to be like, scram, get away, kid, you bother me, but I really loved it. And so I really enjoyed that. Just in this wild, crazy action, it was this. It wasn't just like Ram was living out a fantasy. It was like he was discovering himself in this, and that's what I love. So there's that. There's some moment too where we're like down at the Corsac station and like the Nile, the gas explosion, where you're kind of like, oh no, this foreboding feeling that here comes the Nile. That was very effective for me.
Yeah, yeah. I really liked that action moment that I believe we are in Cantum's perspective when they describe it as Comac's impressive and unsettling
Mhm.
takedown of that commandeered tank. Yeah, that was a great action moment where Comac really showing like, yeah, no, we know who they are. We know what they're here to do. We're going to address it or not. And just the jumping up and slicing the arm and kicking the
Yeah.
the grenade back into the tank. That was a fun and effective action moment for me, and I liked seeing it through Cantum's eyes.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, so the Ram's flight in the Eviscerator, that what seemed like just kind of a fun character moment where Ram loves ships, and
Yeah, right.
what is this one about? But it builds to it really matters. The idea that there's this ancient ship that's designed to drill into other ships. That's really like all right, this book has been a little slow on the action, but now we're going to
Mhm.
11
Yeah.
and actually drilling through a ship, and everything about the way Ram handled it and having to yell at Reith, get out of there
Yeah.
and catch him. All that was great. Love that.
Yeah.
Uh, an odd action moment, but I really, really loved Ram getting so mad at the party
Mm.
that he totally unintentionally breaks the party goers' comm devices. I
Yeah.
thought that was a great, great, just Star Wars moment. It reminded me in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic where I feel like Kylo is unleashing lightning, or Ben at that point, on the Jedi Temple without even really meaning to,
Right.
without choosing that. It's just an expression of the dark side. But then I also liked it from the real world because I feel like comm devices that's they're smartphones, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I feel like this was a scene where Ram saw people uh, joking about something very serious and being very flippant about something they were seeing, on Twitter on their smartphones. He's like, all right, well, no smartphones for any of you. I'm blowing up your phones,
I enjoy
and
that.
not by calling you with the force.
Yes. Love that. I love
Yeah.
that. One of my moments I did enjoy, essentially is a barroom brawl, right? That breaks out at
Yeah.
one point. But I like the way it was played out. It's just like Crash goes to make that punch, and then you go to another chapter, and then it kind of picks up with Cantum, kind of like, it's been a while since I've been in a barroom brawl, and I just kind of like the good old fashioned fisticuffs in Star Wars, and I like that moment.
Yeah, that was absolutely great. I need to highlight at least one Wreath moment. There's so much at the end there when they're just trying to keep the Nile from taking the ships, but that passage where Wreath is really trying to hold out, he's getting wounded and accepting, well, like, this might be the end for me, but it was the right thing to do everything I can to protect this ship. And then the great fist pumping moment of being rescued by that Anzellan Shug, the designer, in a load lifter suit, screaming in the kind of Anzellan speak, like Babu Frick of "We are all the Republic."
Yes. Yeah.
It was also just they didn't point it out, but it was one of those moments where remembering a passage from an earlier book paid off. Do you remember the passage in Claudius Gray's Into the Dark where Reith knows he has to defend someone against the Nile, and he chops the arm off, and it's
Yeah.
the first time he's used his blade like that, and it's
Mm.
just like, I can't believe I had to do that.
Yep.
That's where he started, and now he's like, I'm in the middle of them, and I'm just chopping. Because what else is there? That's the reality. That's what this is.
Yeah.
The growth from, I can't believe I severed one limb and then immediately got that person medical help. Like,
Yeah.
like they're just heads are flying.
And yeah, and I see. I'm also rooting for them more than I should. That scene with that was another great scene of Comac kind of taking this big kind of action moment, right? Taking this thing and then Cantum just kind of being like, "Whoa, wait, what did you do? What did you do?" There's a great philosophical debate behind it, but I kind of like I like that kind of action and the meaning behind it and the debate that it started.
Yeah. Really great stuff. Any more action moments for you?
No. I'm trying to think if I had one. No, I think that was kind of it on that one, the Kovac one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also just wanted to shout out Yoda's arrival, right? I mean,
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
that's
We need to talk.
pretty
Yes.
big, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Sorry, we're stumbling because it's just such a grand moment. I did not know that was happening. Yoda's appearing in the flashbacks and everything, so all good. And then when it just popped up, it was true fist pumping moment. It was really well written. You can imagine it, and I'm for one have been pretty happy with the decision of how they used Yoda so far in the High Republic. We kind of were braced a little bit for that. That Yoda question came up early in the press releases and press conferences and everything. Of we understand Yoda. We kind of kept him out. He'll show up. Don't worry. We got thoughts. And to see it kind of unfold finally, and to do it in this book. I love that this book is a spot for it, and this is what it also speaks to. I guess you kind of got to read them all if you want to get all the big moments. So I love that. I loved it. It worked on many levels.
Yeah, I like that there has been a light touch on Yoda because it was such a question of, are we going to find a way for Yoda to be off on a mission? And he was for part of it. But a lot. He's been in the High Republic adventure. He's really been, working with younglings, which is clearly something that Yoda loves. But there's been kind of a light touch. So then in this book, where I think it's written really well, that we care about these characters and they are given everything they have, and they might lose, right? Or they might lose their lives. The Nile might escape with these ships. The power of having somebody as central to Star Wars is Yoda show up.
Yeah.
And you're like, saying to your book, like, oh, you're in trouble now. Yoda's here, right? It would be great if any Jedi had, if that was Elzar or Avar, right? There would have been that resounding, great, our hero is here. Yeah. But the extra weight that it's Yoda back from his mission to find wisdom, and that he is, clearly by his actions saying, you Jedi are making the right choice, because he arrives and he starts jumping and slicing.
Yeah. I started humming my Yoda's back and you're gonna get in trouble.
A great action moment. We're going to talk about some of the canon connections. As these books go on, they mention a lot of known things. So I try to drill down onto things that are, we don't see as often, or maybe have a real strong connection to another story, instead of listing every Star Wars thing they mention. So there is a lot of quality time on Corellia, and we get into Grindalid culture. There's even a young lady Proxima who appears.
Yep.
This is some solid connected to the movie Solo. How did you feel about all that?
I actually really loved it. Loved it a lot. Loved it right from the beginning with Priebold. And, I'm not saying this was done. I don't know Daniel Jose Older's complete opinions on Solo. He did write the book Last Shot, which was tied to it. So, we love this movie here. So spending a time, and again, Corellia is obviously not new, been around a bit in Star Wars. Nope. To spend a lot of time, but to get into the Grindalid, to have Lady Proxima show up, I just was kind of like a little justification for my love of Solo. And I'm okay with taking that.
Yep. I think there's a lot about it that I love the fact that this is a core world. It's a manufacturing world. So there are people who are just working hard, or brilliant engineers, or politicians who profit off of the fact that this is a very successful world that has its successful industry. And then underneath that, these worms have been here always. The Grindalids, and they have their own culture. And I love some of their cultural stuff of like, well, look, part of our culture is we eat the people who have killed our others, or killed, any of our family.
Yeah.
And we'll either eat the person responsible or the person who we find most responsible, who's available to eat.
What are you doing next Tuesday? Come on down. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is another great action moment when they do finally eat the politician Nomar
Yes.
Falmat. That was powerful. All right, the controversy time, Ken. John Moran made up the word wizard. How do we feel about that?
All right. So look, I think Daniel Jose Older took a big swing with this, and I love wizard. I love the use of it in the Book of Boba Fett with Din. I hope one day that we all can, not just the Kitster, but Jake Lloyd and his Anakin, we can pay some respects to his use of it, which in a way this is. I think I liked it. It just kept popping up to the point. That's what I'm saying, where I'm like, I'd be there going, Ram, if you say wizard one more time, you're done. You're out of the room. Okay? Stop it. So it's a big swing. I have no problem with it. I have no problem with the origins of it. And it's also a nod and love to the prequel. So I'm good with it. It's just a couple times I was like, Ram, stop.
No, I'm with you. I think Wizard was great when Lucas wrote it. Hey, we all have words for cool, awesome, sick, neat, neato. They evolve over time, and it's natural that that one would emerge, or several would emerge in Star Wars. So I've always liked it. I loved it in Book of Boba Fett, where it was because it had power. It wasn't just that from the prequels. It was Din getting in touch with fun, with being childlike. But I agree with you. With great wizard comes great responsibility, and perhaps Ram was leaning on wizard. Like, Ram, make up if you made up wizard, make up at least one other word.
Look, I'm going to confess something. There was a point in my life. There's a former commissioner of Major League Baseball back in, I think, the 30s and beyond, named Ford C. Frick. And I used to try to get my friends to turn that into a curse word, where you'd be like, Ford C. Frick. It did not catch on, and I stopped saying it after a while.
Yep. Sometimes we can't make fetch happen, right? To quote Mean Girls.
But Ram made wizard happen. So good job.
Ram made wizard happen. He defeated the Mean Girls curse.
Yeah.
He made wizard happen. The movie Mean Girls. If for some reason people are like, what the hell are you talking about? It's a great movie. Death Sticks. I acknowledge those just because that means they've been around for a while. How do you feel about the fact that that Elon Sleazebagano is selling a very old product in Attack the Clones?
It's vices go across many generations, so it makes some sense to me. I'm glad there wasn't like an Artie Bagano, Sleazebagano, or some great grandfather of him yet. Who knows? Maybe he'll show up.
Yeah, I just like the idea that some things in Star Wars, like we're learning, like, Bacta's just really being discovered in this era, and some things like Death Sticks, no, people are smoking those during or doing however they ingest them. Hey, Death Sticks were big during the Mandalorian Wars. Forget about it.
Yeah, but that would make sense, right? First came the Death Sticks, then came the Bacta. You need to hear.
It all comes together. Of course, we had the character Shug Drebor, who is an Anzellan, like Babu Frick, and that clearly is something that Anzellans are clearly great engineers. I'm sure there's many other things that the Anzellans are good at, but we've got to meet two engineer types. How did you feel about that?
Hey, anytime you can make me think of Babu Frick, I'm going to be happy. All right. Babu. I love that guy. I love that character. And I want to love Shug Drebor as well now.
Yeah, I just kind of love this about Star Wars storytelling, of like something new gets introduced, and then because we jump all over the timeline, we see these new ideas like they've always been there, and I think that's really fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, one of your old favorites that you have wrestled with in the past, Ken, was referenced. Some of the ships that are being admired and fought over are MPO-1400 Purrgil class star cruisers. Purrgils, of course, from Star Wars Rebels, and you wrestled with Purrgils, not literally, but you wrestled with how you felt about Purrgils, right?
Yeah, you can pay for that experience if you go down to SeaWorld, I think. Wrestle with Purrgils. And you shouldn't. You shouldn't wrestle with Purrgils, kids. Yeah, good old space whales. I'm totally fine with them now, especially on rewatch. I think going back to the day to analyze my dislike of space whales over the course of time, I think a lot of it was just like there was a lot of people shouting out an anger at Last Jedi for risks Ryan Johnson took, and some of those same people had their own cowboy hats on and Filoni as God shirts, and but Dave didn't make those shirts; they made, and I just remember looking at the space whales and going, if a space whale showed up in your Star Wars film, you would burn the theater down. But your hero Filoni does it, and it's the greatest thing. And I think sometimes we have to find our balance in that, and we have to find our RAM and all of that. And I think over the time that's caused my dislike of the space whales to lower, and as why I engage what they're for, and especially how they're used in Rebels in the end. So I'm over it. I love the I love the use of it, because also they're even closer to the Purgles discovering hyperspace, right? Or people realizing it. So it just makes sense that back in the day they'd name them this.
Yeah, I just kind of love the Purgles. I love that, something that is clearly natural but not fully understood, like hyperspace, that there's this animal who can naturally engage with it. I think is great. The idea that people would be going like, what are those space whales doing? What are those Purgles doing? Can we do that? It's like, real humanity looking up at birds going, hey, I want to do that.
It's true.
So I love them being referenced, and it made me like the ships even more. It's really cool. Little detail. And I was lucky this weekend to go on a little whale watching cruise by the Channel Islands. And I got distracted. We were lucky to find whales, looking at actual human whales, Ken, not human whales, Earth whales, and thinking like, I bet there's Purgle watching tours that you can take in Star Wars.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. Speaking of Star Wars meets the real world, the Galactic Star Cruiser experience, that ship, is the Halcyon, and there's lots of mentions about the Halcyon towing Starlight Beacon to Dalna. That was fun to see that seated in there. How did you feel about that one?
Yeah, I know, I like it. I was going to say, how dare Star Wars Connect and try to make a commercial for this? It's it's totally fine. I like it.
It is what it is, right? Yep.
It is what it is, and I actually like the history. If you're going to do it to the full extreme, right? And Halcyon stories, books, everything have it mentioned. Yeah, there now I feel like it's got some history.
That's the thing for me, is if you were just reading books and comics and Halcyon started to pop up and you didn't know that it was a resort experience that you could do, it would work in the story for me. Because I was like, ooh, interesting. This ship that's been around that crosses the generations and represents this, different kind of life. And here's how it interacts at all these different points in time. That's what's interesting to me.
Yeah, totally.
Just a couple more here. One of the many characters working for Chase is Tamo the Savrip. And I got distracted and looked up Savrip and realized it's a big lizard creature that we mostly know from being a Dejeric piece that we see as early as the first film. How did you feel about that? Is this justice for the Dejeric piece to see a Savrip in person?
A deep cut that I had to look up as well. I'm trying to get better at when I see an alien species or a name or a ship or something in Star Wars. I go, let me look it up so I know what I'm picturing in my head. Yeah, and you're right. Good call. Fun. I like fun in Star Wars. I like celebrating this thing we all love.
Yeah, Tamo was a fun character, and how big and powerful they were was such a point in the comedy and the plot that I was really curious what it was, and I was delighted when I saw the answer because I didn't recognize Savrip. Just two more here. Sabatha Krill, the sort of Nile big bad in some ways of this story, is described as an Urkit. That is the same species as Odie Mandrell. How do you feel about that?
Anytime we're getting the pod race mentioned, I'm excited.
Yeah, let's get the pod race in there. And the final one I wanted to save is I lied. There's one more after this. Anyway, Finmos Tag is mentioned as a politician on Corellia, a father of chemicals, relative of your beloved Cassio.
Cassio, Cassio's sister, who's in the comics now, was a Dominica Tag. Yeah. If you haven't caught up with her, she's one of the main villains in kind of the between Empire and Jedi section of time there. House Tag emerging as a pretty powerful force in the galaxy. I don't mind it at all.
That's great. House Tag. I love it. Final thing here in canon on page 306. One of the characters is reflecting on that this is a different time for the Jedi having to be in all of these conflicts and see all this violence. And they're thinking a generation earlier during the Republic's expansion into the Outer Rim, things had been thornier. and I felt like, oh, thank you for the log line for phase 2 of the High Republic. Did it hit you that way?
100%. A couple other moments, all effective, by the way, because we were wondering, and we're here excited about this kind of going back in time to learn about the present, and so I had a good fun laugh. Again, Star Wars, it's like its own end credit scene here. We're going back in
Yeah.
time. I liked it a lot.
It really made me excited, partially because it's just saying like, yeah, look, there's going to be a lot of conflict. The Jedi had to deal with a lot of questions, but this is really what I was hoping Phase 2 is going to be about, is this a real frontier story of
Hmm.
expansion into the Outer Rim. First time, certain planets are being interacted with by the Republic, by Jedi, maybe, and the idea that, yeah, that was complex, and Jedi went through a lot back in the day.
Well, yeah, yeah.
That made me excited for Porter Engel. How do you become the Blade of Bardata?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It makes sense. We were talking about the core planets kind of being like, yeah, we want nothing to do with out there. Well, I'm sure out there's like, no, never mind. We're pretty good. Leave us alone. I'm waiting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We're gonna move on then to from canon to, we always like to take a moment for anything that we wrestled with. We did not wrestle with wizard, but maybe there were a couple a couple of more wizards than we were prepared for.
Mhm.
Maybe we need a wizard content warning on the front of this book. It's a pretty small thing. Was there anything else that you struggled with at all?
Look, I think I've danced around it here and we've talked about it a little bit. I just want to kind of put it out there. What going through this book, especially the first half of this book, like Joseph, I'm a professional comedian, entertainer, going back 25 plus years in various kind of disciplines. And what that means is, I don't laugh a lot. I'm like a comedy wall, and I Daniel Jose Older seems like a great guy. We don't know him. Like, we know some people who've engaged with him a lot and really like him. And I think I'm really convinced that if Daniel and I sat down in a hotel lobby bar, we'd have a great time and it'd be a good pal. I just don't know if we see eye to eye on all humor, which it's fine. What makes you laugh makes you laugh. What makes me not laugh makes me not laugh. And I think just a lot of the jokes in this book just kind of crash up against me as that comedy wall. But what wins me over, and this is to say, you start with something negative and work to something positive. Positive. What wins me over every time with Daniel Jose Older is the joy in his writing and the joy for his characters. And I'm definitely, if I was a Jedi in this era, I would groan every time Ram walked into a room. But when he leaves, I'd probably smile to myself and think, that kid's all right. And I think a lot of the humor comes from that point of view. It comes from a little goofier point of view. I would definitely be saying no more wizards here, Ram. And that kind of makes me the bad guy, and Ram's the one living it right. And so the couple times throughout this book, I just like, all right, this humor's not hitting. But like you said up top, Joseph, it's a different style for a different era, and it's very important to kind of flow with that change and not swim against it. So Daniel Jose Older, tip of a cap. I think he sometimes wears like one of those little newsy caps I see him in. I wear beanies. Tip of my beanie to your cap. I get it. And at the end of the day, Ram is a really joyous character that I love.
Yeah, yeah. I think I like, if I were a Jedi, I think I would be more okay just chilling with Ram.
Yeah.
So I like Ram. I've always liked Ram a lot. I love the specificity of a Jedi who really thinks in mechanical terms, and
Mm,
everybody else is like, I see the Force as stars.
mm.
I see the Force as the ocean. It's like, I see it as drill bits that fit together. That's I like that a lot. Yeah, no, I think for me, I love Daniel Jose Older's work because in some ways it reminds me of George Lucas. It's very Why Not. It's like
Mhm.
it's very centered on like, here are the big deep philosophical tenets. Here's what matters. Here's what the characters are struggling with. Here's how they go through pain and how they find a way forward. That heart is always there. And then I feel like some of just kind of like the surface fun is just like, is this allowed in Star Wars? Let's try. Who cares? Let's go. Let's have fun. Let's not be overly serious, except for the stuff that's deadly serious. Then we nail it. But then there's this spirit of like, why not? Let's try. Let's have fun. I think that's popping up. That popped up a lot in the book of Boba Fett,
Mhm.
and I think an effect of that is sometimes some of the, hey, let's try this, let's throw this against the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah.
Sometimes for me it doesn't stick on a taste level, like, yeah, there's a joke I don't like, or a word that sounds too modern, but that's me. That's not
Mhm.
like, I think the book is wrong. That's my reaction. And
Yeah.
I would trade a ton of little small beats that go like, that joke didn't land for me, or that sounds too modern for me. I'm happy to have those there because the bigger thing to me that's important is to have that spirit of exploration and why not an evolution that's so necessary to Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah, and to have an author who approaches it with a big smile, I think I'm thankful for that all the time and every time.
Yeah. So, final thing here is we're wrapping up. What is your hope for the future of these characters? We have just a few stories left in phase one. We're learning that Yoda is recalling all the Jedi to the temple after the disaster of the Starlight beacon.
Love
How does that affect your hopes? Not for phase two, not for the next one, but for phase three, when I assume we're moving back to this story that's kind of ending on a cliffhanger.
Joseph, there was something I just love so much about that. He shows back up, clearly something going on. He's got that bandaged stranger who's repeating the little children's nursery rhyme, which probably ties to was the levelers there, and the thing that's really getting the Jedi and bringing them great fear. This weapon, man, I love it. I love it. I think it's smart tactically too. By the way, like I'm just like, you're all spread out. Look what's happening. And you can't get to each other. We got to go back home. We got to regroup. So I really actually kind of had a little bit of a fist pump with that. I think it was right to be out in the galaxy, to be clear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but now you must adjust. And it's a little bit of what Komack was saying in a smaller version or a different kind of way, to be clear. But I just love that. And also with this idea of just like, even looking at phase two with Yoda going, I forget the exact quote, but towards the end there, of like, we're going to have to fight now. We're going to have to learn about the secrets of the past. So I'm like, Yoda's coming in and he's the next time on character, and it's getting me excited.
Right. Deal this we will in phase three.
Yeah.
Yeah. That final quote, to forge our path to the future, guided by the secrets of the past, we will be. That's such a Star Wars turn of phrase, right? And so, then phase two, we'll go back to the past, maybe see where some of the Jedi actions of the past might have been something that Marchion Ro is responding to. That stuff's all great. Generational tale. Love the weird hooded figure with creepy song about turning to dust.
Yeah.
And for me, it just really got me excited about phase three in general, about where it's all going to land, but just how invested I am in these characters in this story, and wanting to jump back into the past for phase two, but can't wait to get back to phase three.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this. I love what you're saying about, like, look, there was this, we expanded out into the Outer Rim. Then Lena So comes along and really has this vision of, we are going to bring everybody together. We are all the Republic. And Jedi are like, yeah, absolutely. 2 thumbs up. Let's spread ourselves around the galaxy. And then the Nile come out, and we're trying to defend. We're out there defending. And suddenly the Nile and Marchion Ro in particular have made it about the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that Yoda's being like, okay, we're not, there's not a battle that's going on that we're inserting ourselves in to resolve and defend. We are becoming the battle. So let's retreat. Yeah. And if that's your thing now, if the Nile is about attacking the Jedi, we're going to come here and you come to us.
Yep. Yep. Tactically sound, emotionally sound. There's a lot of things. Thank you, Yoda. Thank you.
Yeah. And it makes me just kind of feel like this great big picture story of the High Republic is building towards a story that these Jedi will triumph. They will defeat Marchion Ro and the Nile ultimately in phase three, but that scar of fear will be inflicted. That fear that is kind of festering, I think, in the prequels, where they're really clinging to, like, this is we're the Jedi. This is the way we do things. These are the bad things that can happen. It sounds good on the surface, but there's some fear. I think that scar of fear is going to be inflicted by the time this is all done.
Star Wars, the scar of fear. Yeah, well, there's something early on around some of the Reese stuff talking about the rules, but there's the comfort of the Jedi Order's rules at this point in time. And you talk about the scar and how that might turn and maybe become a shield of the Order that the Order's hiding behind versus finding comfort or guidance from. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that turn of phrase. There are a lot of quotes I wrote down from this book. Do you have any desires or hopes for the future of these individual characters? Some of these High Republic characters that we're spending time with. Do you think phase three is going to have a happy ending for some of these characters, for all these characters? What are you thinking?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to Ram finally ascending to a level of Jedi Knight, right? I think he's still a ways away, which, by the way, I love. I love that they were like, Reeth, you're ready? Ram, You're wizard, but not quite yet, man. We'll get there. Get there. I love that. I am really invested in Comac. This is a powerful Jedi that was on the roster of stars we are to get to know when the High Republic era was unveiled, and for him at the height of this to be like, here's my blade. I gotta go. I gotta go figure this out. I'm most interested of these characters. There's some wonderful characters here. Most interested to see where he goes from there.
Yeah, very interested in Comac's story and seeing if he comes to this path where like I can't be what the Jedi need me to be right now, or I can't be what the Jedi need me to be forever. I never should have been a Jedi. I found a different path. I'm so excited to see that story. Really like Ram. Obviously, love Wreath. Very intrigued by Zine's story if she is going to become truly a part of. If she's going to be inducted into the Order, showing like a kind of flexibility that existed in this era, but maybe won't for a lot longer. I'm really intrigued by that. I have no idea what the end of the High Republic is going to be, but there's honestly a part of me that feels like, depending on where Phase 3 picks up, I would be happy to have an extremely long, like people make their jokes about Return of the King, but look, give me the longest ending ever where jump forward and I want to know what 70-year-old Wreath thinks.
Yep.
How many Padawans did he have? All that. I want to know if, did Ram design the Delta 7 Aether Sprite, Jedi Interceptor? I want to see, we got to spend time with them going through the throes that young Padawans do, seeing what scarred them, what shaped them. And I would love to have just like a little bit of time with them as old Jedi.
Love this idea. And as someone, I know I've said this on the show before, but as someone who sat in the theater watching Return of the King going, please, more. I'm not done. Give me more. Give me more. It ends? No, I didn't want it to end. I love this idea. Maybe we just get a follow-up High Republic novella that's just all the conclusions or thoughts from years later.
Yeah, like I would even take like on a movie that's based in real life that has the flash of what happened to them, on the screen. Totally. Yeah, at least give me that. Little picture book that shows me how they all grew up. And some of them might not make it yet. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to touch on?
No, as always, we really go to all the places I want to and need to go. End of the day, just, this fun book at first got really deep and just in ways that I wasn't expecting. And that even made it more valuable and poignant to me.
Yep. I think the book overall is a story of this attack on Corellia that goes along with the attack on Starlight Beacon. It really holds together as its own story within the big story. Great beginning, middle, and end. Great ramping up of stakes and energy. And then within that, just so many ideas about Jedi philosophy, about connection, room for change, about politics, about sexuality. It's really amazing how many big ideas are in this book that is also fun and energetic and full of life. So overall, I think this one was a real triumph for me.
Yep. High Republic is going well, my friends. It's going well.
Absolutely. So fun question to wrap up. Ken, which of these characters would you want to be on a road trip with?
Ram, I love you, man. It ain't you. It ain't you, Ram. It ain't you, babe. Yeah, I actually would be, I got to say, Canton. They've got some great stories. They've got some experience that goes outside the walls of the Order, which is intriguing to me. And I kind of loved this ongoing story he was telling Comac, and Comac kind of being like, well, that can't be the end of the story, right?
I love that they were telling the story like slowly over time. Like, well, we got a little distracted by that conflict, but yeah, let me pick up. So I was with this acrobat.
Yeah, I love that. So I think Cantum's my answer.
Cantum is a great answer. Wreath, I think I'd like to be on a road trip with Wreath, but I wonder if maybe we'd be too similar, or if we'd get along because we're so similar and talk about what books we want to read and our anxieties in life. I think I would like that. But I'm actually going with Ram because look at you. I think he's fun. He's fun. He's talkative, and engaged and energetic. But also he seems like he does have that side of himself that's a loner. So I think for a while there, he'd probably just quiet down and be thinking about his own things.
That's true.
But then not to be too mercenary about it. How great would it be to be on a road trip with absolutely no fear that your car breaks down because Ram can just fix it with the Force.
You're not saying lies here. You're spitting those facts. I like it.
Excellent. Well, this was our big look at the great High Republic book, Midnight Horizon. Thank you, listeners, for understanding that we like to dive deep, which means the episodes do get a little bit long when we review the books. But we will, of course, keep talking about the High Republic and hoping everybody enjoys it. Ken, where can people find us?
Hey, you can find us on Twitter at ForceCenter Pod. We are also on Instagram and YouTube as well. Our Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. Podcasts available on a lot of spots, including Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. We have merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. We can be supported at patreon.com/ForceCenter if you so choose. From there, you get our bonus show every month, Will of the Force, and other things as well. You can find me at Ken Napzok, or go to my website, cannapzok.com. Joseph, where can they go for you?
You can find me on all the social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw. And for all of my other comedy adventures, you can check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for Reith Silas, and for Room to Change, this has been ForceCenter.